Good morning, Mosaic. Thank you so much for the invitation to come and share with you, even more so for making a way for me to continue to come and be with you this morning digitally. I hope you all have made your way here. Greetings, happy Sunday morning. Again, my name is Ben Collins. Thanks for the generous introduction earlier from our liturgist in the service. Our text this morning for consideration is from the Gospel of Matthew, typically called the Beatitudes. This is Matthew chapter 5. Jesus has just begun his ministry. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who came before you." The world finds itself in a state of preparation and introspection, of preparation for something big. In the church, we happen to be in the season of Lent, ramping towards Easter. In the world, this is coronavirus, headed we know not where. We fear, we conjecture, we accumulate and combine by some culturally prescribed maths an assured sense that we know. In fact, we do not know. We do not know. So, since we're not in control or aware of where the world is headed, perhaps we can settle into the gifts of the tradition, the season of Lent, and let it help guide our introspection. And I think this invites us, like the season of Lent, like the virus, to find grace in the midst of gravity, to find love in the midst of chaos, and specifically that we would experience love without leverage. The season of Lent, like the coronavirus, begins with a reminder to all of us of our shared humanity and mortality. On Ash Wednesday, we begin the season with a reminder that we are dust, and to dust we will return. Corporately, we're made of that which we disregard, dust. Dirt. Spiritually, we're made of that about which we dream and wonder, the stars, the universe, the mystery, the unknown. We are, in the universe, I think as Carl Sagan puts it, a small speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam. We're stardust. We're dust. We're somehow all meaningless and all majestic. Life is what we experience suspended between these simultaneous realities. Lent, and I believe now this virus, this season, invites us to inhabit this suspension with intent. The Beatitudes invite us to inhabit this suspension with intent, to sit in the discomfort of the truth that we are both dust and stardust, that we are meaningless and we're majestic, that we're both poor in spirit and blessed, that we're living in a world both of gravity and of grace. This good news that Jesus stands up to share is not the announcement of advice about the right way to win, the right team to join, the right tribe to align with. It's not an announcement that further divides us. It's an announcement that integrates us, one that puts us back together. We have a negative association with poor in spirit. We imagine that poor in spirit means not blessed, not favored, not successful, happy, well, at peace, not killing it, not living your best life. Instead, for poor in spirit, we use phrases like rock bottom. But Jesus says, you've made these things enemies, poor in spirit and blessing, polarities, dualities, as far apart from each other as they can be. And it seems as if at the beginning of this famous sermon, Jesus is saying, what if we put these things together and we see how they feel? What does it feel like if we put poor in spirit and blessing together. Now, typically the season of Lent aims pretty steadily towards death and mortality, the reflection that we come from dust, will return to dust, that this is the one life we get, and we're responsible for how we use these days. I think this year, and particularly in light of where we find ourselves globally with this pandemic, with the human community of trying to figure out what it is to do the right thing, how to best not only sustain the lives we have, but to care for people we'll never meet. I think instead of just focusing on death and mortality, I think perhaps this year Lent invites us to reflect on the equity of human suffering. Or maybe we could say the interdependence of human need. Remember that you're dust, and to dust you shall return. Not just mortality, but equality. Remember that we're all dust. Remember that we're all just people. Remember every single human being on the planet can potentially catch this virus, can potentially spread this virus, potentially love someone who will suffer from this virus. The equity of our human suffering brings us together. Sure, we're all dust, but we're also stardust. And this begs the question, who then is on the outside? Who then is on the outside? Both the Beatitudes and the coronavirus and the reminder that we're dust and we're stardust, they beg the question, who then is on the outside? Where do we draw these boundaries? Who is expendable? Gravity, the world of gravity, is life with leverage. The apple falls, the market falls, the powerful win, the losers are defeated, the meek get nothing, the dishonest gain while the honest lose, the gullible shall inherit the debt, the poor in spirit get no kingdom, those who mourn remain miserable, the meek inherit the leftovers, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness go to bed without supper. The merciful get taken advantage of, the pure in heart get corrupted, the peacemakers get war, and the persecuted get what's coming to them. In the world of gravity, it's an eye for an eye. Violence begets violence. The fire of vengeance spreads. Hate returns hate. And in the world of gravity, there is no rescue mission planned. There is no escape hatch. There is neither grace nor heaven that can take us out of the world of gravity. This is where we live. Grace is an invitation to an experience of and a way of love without leverage, right here in the midst of this world of leverage and suffering. And I'll admit, the message, Jesus' announcement, doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. It's a scandalously celebratory and inclusive announcement. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Why? Why? No reason. No reason. The philosopher Jacques Derrida says the rose blooms without why. Grace is what happens without why. Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. When we ask why, we ask, how did they earn it? In a transactional world, why should they be blessed? What have they paid in order to receive that blessing? And Jesus is saying, no. No, blessed are the poor in spirit. Why? No reason. They're blessed without a why. Those who mourn and the meek and the hungry and the merciful and the peacemakers. We're talking about a way of living right in the middle of our lives and our culture in the midst of a pandemic. And we're talking about living in such a way, not a way that wages war on gravity. We don't need more polarity and dualism and division. We're not waging war on gravity. Grace simply suspends gravity. It allows space for spirit to float, for the sacred not to fall through the cracks of our gritty and material and human lives. I think Jesus is saying most simply here, grace is for everyone. Everyone we think is left out, looked over, forgotten, excluded, whoever we think is out. Jesus actually begins his most famous sermon with them. The people who can't get in and shouldn't get in and will never get in. Jesus says God's favor is with them. God's presence is with them, even them. Who then is on the outside? Blessed are those who cheated in order to do the right thing, to help someone else. Blessed are the cheaters who only did it for themselves. Blessed are the ones who had the abortion, the ones who are unfaithful, the absentee parents, the deadbeat families. Blessed are the terrorists who weren't born wanting to kill Americans, but who were radicalized as kids, and blessed are the people that trained them to hate. Blessed are the religious imposters who act like they have all the answers, but really they've got the same fears and questions as all of us. Blessed are those who are self-destructive, self-injurious, suicidal. Please hear us. Your blessedness is not contingent upon your wellness. Your blessedness is not contingent upon your wellness. The dust and the Beatitudes and this season of virus, they say the real stuff is in us already. God is with us already. Not when everything gets fixed, but in the mess, in the lockdown, in the quarantine, in the virus. Today we remember that God is with us in all the dust, in all the ashes. Nothing could be more clear to me than the truth that Jesus begins this announcement of blessing with those viewed as the least blessed. The Beatitudes aren't a list of things we should be. We're not striving for these. They're an announcement about the presence of God with everyone who we think is out. Jesus' announcement of this kind of blessing doesn't fit in the categories of his day or ours. It's bigger than that. It's better than that. He's saying whatever it is that we mean when we mean heaven, it's here now, and everyone's invited, and even especially those who we think don't have a seat at the table. And by focusing, obviously this is a heavy time and a morbid time, but by focusing not only on this mortality, but on the way that ashes in this season remind us of our shared humanity, of the equity of our human suffering and our human need, especially at a time like this. Remember that you're dust. Sure, one day you'll die, but remember that you're dust, just like the rest of us, someone who desires and suffers like the rest of us. People who anyone, if you give them any length of time, will have been poor in spirit, will have been mourning and grieving, meek and powerless, hungry and thirsty. Hopefully we've tasted mercy and peacemaking. Remember that you're stardust. Remember that you're dust. And remember that you'll dance in all the galaxies. I want to leave you with this. This is a poem, Blessing the Dust by Jan Richardson. I think it speaks of this gravity and grace in the world that we find ourselves in. She says this: all those days you felt like dust, like dirt, as if all you had to do was turn your face toward the wind and be scattered to the four corners, or swept away by the smallest breath as insubstantial. Did you not know what the Holy One can do with dust? This is the day we say freely, we are scorched. This is the hour we are marked by what has been made through the burning. This is the moment we ask for the blessing that lives within the ancient ashes, that makes its home inside of the soil of this sacred earth. So let us be marked not for sorrow, and let us be marked not for shame. Let us be marked not for false humility or for thinking we are less than we are, but for claiming what God can do within the dust, within the dirt, within the soil, within the stuff of which the world is made, and the stars that blaze in our bones and the galaxies that spiral inside the smudge we bear. We find ourselves in a world of gravity this week, friends, heavier perhaps than it's ever been. The invitation is this week is to find moments, seek moments for grace in between each breath, in the laughter, the video calls you can't seem to figure out. Make time, find space for grace in this world of gravity. Hope to be with you again soon. Grace and peace, Mosaic.